Thank you very much, Marcus. So this gives me the great pleasure to introduce our first speakers. So we will be welcoming Christina Hess and Roxana Holm to the stage. And they're going to talk about what is AI trustworthiness and why is it so important that systems based on AI are trustworthy. So to introduce those speakers, Christina, she is a university assistant at the University of Vienna and a data scientist at Risk GmbH here in this building. And her background is in medical informatics and engineering from Hagenberg. And basically, she's focused a lot on logistics and forecasting, transporting costs. That was during her master's. And now, so you can see that practical perspective is already there. And now she is still interested in solving real-world problems, including applying ML techniques. And she will be joined by Roxana, who has a master's of component-based programming from the Universitatea Babeș-Bolyai din Cluj-Napoca. I have a Romanian friend and I asked him for a voice message to tell me how I can pronounce this. I hope it was okay. And she has a master's of computer science and a PhD from JKU. And she's worked as an evaluator for the European Commission, using her data science and software engineering expertise to help assess project proposals. And she is currently a data science project manager also at Risk. So without further ado, please welcome them.
So hello, thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Catherine, for the nice introduction. So we will not have so much work to do to introduce ourselves. So today we are just giving a short talk about why do I say short? It's because this topic is so bright already, so it's so broad. So I think we cannot solve too many questions in half an hour, but we will try to give our perspectives and our ideas on this topic. So we will talk about trustworthy from a developer's perspective. So how do we feel this? What does this mean for us and our colleagues? But we also give a short introduction before in the guidelines regarding trustworthy AI, a short example on a project that we have, and various perspectives also from the stakeholders and developers. Very shortly about us, because Catherine said already a lot about us. It's like I'm coordinating and implementing projects, research projects mostly in data science area. And that's why I'm also using my experience as an evaluator at the Commission to bring my input to this project at Risk.
Okay, hi. I'm Christina. I work at the University of Vienna, and I'm working in logistics mainly, and I'm also a part-time data scientist for Risk Software. I think a lot has been said about us. Maybe we can dive right in. Okay, so what is AI trustworthiness and why do we need it? How is it so important to talk about it? Why should we care? So at first I asked myself, okay, what is trustworthiness in general? And what I generally do is I go to the Oxford Dictionary and ask them, what is trustworthiness? So they say trustworthiness is the quality of always being good, honest, sincere, and so on, so that people can rely on you. So we want the AI to be in a way that we can rely on it. We need to trust the AI as human. So in addition to all the AI benefits we have seen in the last years, there are also some challenges. They come from ethics, and also there are legal challenges and social challenges. And that is where trustworthy AI comes into play. So there are other names for trustworthy AI. It's not always trustworthiness. We have also seen beneficial AI, responsible AI, or ethical AI. And what is most important to say here, I think, is that it's very interdisciplinary. So we have a lot of different researchers from different backgrounds in trustworthiness, in AI trustworthiness. You'll see that later in our use case. I added some literature here because I know the slides will be published, and you can see, you can look at that afterwards if you're interested. Okay, so the European Commission has a high-level expert group, and they developed some guidelines, and this is what I want to give you a bit of an overview of. So they're called the Ethics Guidelines for Trustworthy AI, and they say that trust must be established. in order for societies to realize the full potential of AI. So, in a nutshell, what should trustworthy AI be according to the EU guidelines? We'll tell you about that. So we have lawful, ethical, and robust. And we have 4 principles, 4 ethical principles, and 7 key requirements that the guidelines of the European Union telling us how to get to trustworthy AI. And they also give us an assessment list, which is really nice. You need to tailor this always to the specific AI application because it's a very general list, and also the ethical principles and the key requirements. It's all very general, and you have to just interpret and tailor it to your use case and your application. So I'm just going over this very quickly. As I said, slides will be published. You can read up afterwards. So we have the respect for human autonomy. We always want to have the human in control. We want to have human oversight. And what is very popular these days is the human-centric design principles. If we have human-centric design principles, and if we focus on the human being already in developing the AI, this is a good thing. This is what we want to do. Obviously, AI should prevent harm. So AI systems should not cause any harm. And of course, they must be safe and secure. So this means technical robustness and also protecting it against cyber attacks, for example. Right. Then there is fairness. It's always hard to say what is fair. Everyone has a different opinion about what is fair. But in the EU guidelines, they say that there should not be unfair bias in the data or discrimination. We all know about this. And that the decision-making processes have to be explicable. So we need to know why an AI makes a decision about this and how the decision is made. And then there is explicability. This is what I just said. The decisions must be explainable to everyone who is affected, directly or indirectly. Right, so the key requirements, there are 7 of them, are human agency and oversight. You see it's very similar to the ethical principles. Human agency basically means that the users can make informed decisions regarding the AI system, if they want to interact with it, how they want to do this, if they are okay with the decisions. And human oversight, a lot of you have heard about human in the loop or human on the loop. And then there's also human in control, where the human is really fully in control, not only in the developing process, but also in the running AI system. Technical robustness, I already mentioned this. The AI must be resilient to attacks. You have to think about security. You have to have a fallback plan. And what's also important, we all know this, is the accuracy. We need to be informed about the errors. Is the AI going to make errors? How likely is that? How bad are the errors going to be? Right. Privacy and data governance. I think we all know a lot about this, and we've heard a lot. Yeah, privacy is a big thing still, and also data protection, and it's yeah, obviously a very important thing. And what is always key in an AI project is the data quality. We all know this. Data is the basis of everything. So biases or inaccuracies or errors, this should all be addressed before using the data to create an AI system. Because if we have bias in the data, then we're going to have a biased AI system, which is going to make biased decisions about us. Transparency, this is also a small hype, the explainability hype in AI. This is also very important. Decisions must be understandable by us. I need to be, I as a human, if the AI makes a decision about me, I need to be informed why this was made and how the decision was made by the system. Okay, then there's diversity, non-discrimination, and fairness. Again, fairness, we want to avoid unfair bias, accessibility and universal design. So everyone should be able to use the AI system, right? We don't want to have an AI system where only that can only be used by young people, or I don't know, by men or women. Yeah, you know what I mean. And there's also stakeholder participation. We'll talk about that later. That is very, very important. We have to consult everyone who is directly or indirectly affected. not only people that use the AI systems, but all other people that have anything to do with the system. Society is also very important. We need to think about the social impact, and we also need to think about other things like democracy. Is the AI system going to affect any institutions or the society in general? Yeah, this is also very important. Also think about, sorry, going back here, also think about when training your AI system, think about the resource usage and the energy consumption in training deep learning models, for example. This is also a big part here. Then there's accountability and governance. This is the last one. We have auditability. We want to minimize negative impacts. We need to have a plan about minimizing this. How can we do this? And there's also going to be some tensions in between these requirements. And it's all about making sure that you think of everything and you make compromises, and you also have to document these compromises. Okay. And there are some methods in the guidelines of the European Union. They tell us and they give us a few hints how we can do that. And there are some technical ones for the technical people around here, and the non-technical ones like standardization or social dialogue in general. The technical ones, you all know about this probably, like X by design, like secure by design, for example. Yeah, so we have 4 ethical principles, 7 key requirements, and we have a small assessment list, which we can use to just, I don't know, have something like a checklist, which you should always look at when developing your AI system. As I told you before, there are a lot of other guidelines and initiatives. I added here some literature. You can see here there is a lot of effort all around the world of nations or initiatives who try to establish some guidelines. I listed some here. This is, for example, AI for People or the OECD, and there are a lot of guidelines, as you can see. And what I found really interesting is that also the Bayerische Rundfunk has their own ethical guidelines. So I think you see there is, yeah, this is going to be very important in the future, and yeah, maybe you can have a look at that. Okay, so I'm going to show you a real-life use case. We at Risk Software developed Trustworthy AI in the so-called Safe Sign project. This was an FFG-funded project where we tried to automatically recognize traffic signs, for example, in a self-driving car. What the goal was to have a robust traffic sign detection with deep learning. So, you know, robust and trustworthy with deep learning is sometimes a bit hard because deep learning systems are not always the most explainable ones. So this is what an image taken from a car would look like, for example. There you have the traffic sign. And there were a few research questions like how do disturbances affect the current classifiers? Which ethical aspects are relevant? How can the classifiers that we already have, how can they be improved? What can we do to make them better? And yeah, and how do human and automatic classification differ? So if we ask a human and if we ask the AI system, are there going to be any differences? Okay, so the concept in SafeSign was to have an image database where we had a lot of images of traffic signs in different conditions and maybe with rain and without rain. And obviously we need to do some pre-processing because we always need to do that. And then we have some deep learning model, let's call it this cloud here. And we obviously need interpretability and robustness. So we want the model to be robust, and we want the model to say that when there is, let's say, 30 on the traffic sign, that it doesn't see 80 and then the car hits a tree or something like that. We don't want that. So we need to do some noise detection. This can be weather-related or also adversarial noise, because there may be some people who want to, I don't know, mess with these with this detection system. So we need to detect the noise. And then we have some synthetic images that we can feed into the database. This was also done in the project. Yeah, and that is how the system is learning, and this is how it was trained. What's most important in this project is the partners, because I talked about diversity and teams in developing trustworthy AI systems. So we have to have some AI experts, obviously, because we're training deep learning models. We also need some legal experts because we're talking about trustworthiness and about really sensitive things here, if we talk about self-driving cars. We also need some ethics experts, and of course, we need to include all the relevant stakeholders. So the partners were the Risk Software, the ASFINAG, and the JKU in Linz. The capabilities of AI were discussed a lot in this project. So how important is it that the human has control over the AI system in the car? Do we just want the AI to warn us, or do we want the AI to hit the brakes, for example? What does harm avoidance mean? It means something different to the ethics people than it means, for example, to the deep learning people. And yeah, of course, ensure good quality, prevent bias. And we also did some research on adversarial attacks because accurate deep learning models are often vulnerable to different attacks. Yeah, so that this was also a research point we did. Okay, and there will be the Austrian Highway Traffic Sign dataset. This will be published by the end of the year. This was made by us in cooperation with ASFINAG and the JKU. So as a result, what can technology contribute? You all know it by now. Security by design, for example. You can have a look at the architecture and make a special architecture so that everything is secure, for example. Explainability is a big part, especially with deep learning models. Testing, validation, of course. And also have a lot of service quality parameters that can tell you how good your model actually is in different settings. What can ethics contribute? We need to document everything that we do so that not only the AI system and its decisions are transparent, but also that the whole process of developing and testing and using it is transparent. We need to raise awareness and of possible discrimination, of risks, and a lot of other things. And yeah, we need the ethics experts normally question all technical steps. Why are you doing this? Is this important? Is it secure? Do we have bias? Something like that. So, bit of a spoiler alert. We are at the Ars Electronica Festival, which is next week from Thursday to Sunday. So if you are there, we developed in this project the small Crash Me If You Can project, which is in the exhibition at the AEC Festival. Here are a few pictures. This is what the slot car project looks like. And we look forward to seeing you there if you can make it.
I overtake now. And I just want to bring my experience or my ideas from different projects that we also did at Risk. And this one is it's in one project that is ongoing. And it's together with SCCH also, and Automobile Cluster and Digitrans. So we are doing a feasibility study to see what we need, what's feasible with trustworthy AI in autonomous driving for Austria and for Upper Austria. So we focus on Austria and on the stakeholders from here, of course, with input and from international input also. I'm sorry that you don't see this very well, this first slide, but at home I think it's visible, better visible. So it's only, the idea is we had a stakeholder workshop and we have a series. This was from the first one. We met together with stakeholders, different stakeholders, and this is a good point. So the diversity comes also here, because we try to gather people from research, people from the industry, from with legal, which are with so law experts, let's say, and to gather all the ideas together. And the first question that we did, so it was again, we did it all online. It was a mirror board that we prepared, and we had several questions. And the first one was a more general question, and it was tackling real life examples that the people know, with where trustworthy AI is important, is required, so that we see where are our participants staying with, where are their knowledge. And we had a lot of, actually I was surprised because many of them, some examples were already known maybe or specific, like the AMS algorithm, and then search engine optimization, stuff like this, so natural language processing solutions, and others, because we were focusing on autonomous driving in our project. They were specific for, they already mentioned the characteristics that Christina already said, like integrity, explainability. Also, they also mentioned directly for what does it mean for the automotive industry? How can I apply the deep learning in automotive industry? What about certification? And then in the second part of the workshop, the main part was so we wanted to come to use cases and problems that we could solve in a future project with people, with stakeholders from Austria. And the idea was, let's see which problems you have, or with which problems are you dealing. Because we had so broad publicum, we had also ideas about so data problems, like when you don't, like objects are not detected because the data, because the challenge is you don't have all the training data available or the necessary data. Then there were other more human-related problems, like the trust in AI systems, like general or human-vehicle connection, communication. This was also something. Then this is also a difference to the next view that you will see from the developer. We had a lot of information because we also had people from the law area. We also had a lot of information about how they see this part. And it was also interesting to see that there were mentioned like challenges like cultural aspects, differences between national and international laws. How can I deal with this in a project? And then we also had the training, or let's say the data problems, because we know now as a developer that most of the problems in AI or in machine learning come from the database, so from my bases that I have. So again, we found out, which was kind of known, but it's like the idea how I combine this data and how I share it, so that because if I'm producing something for a vehicle, it should be someone else should test it. It should be standardized. It should be certified. So there were a lot of questions in this direction. So we figured out that one of the biggest problems is like to find the training data pool and one model validation pool, and that should be that should tackle challenges like liability and also data connectivity in this area. There were also a lot of, I also reduced a bit the list and put some of them, and you can also read some of them at home afterwards if you want. And then we were thinking with Christina in May, okay, what should we do that's different from the other workshops that we were attending? Okay, we need the overview. We will have also this idea from our project. And then we said, okay, let's ask our colleagues, what do they think about Trustworthy AI? Because I'm used to hear these different opinions, let's say, developers and stakeholders, or from the management, could I also say sometimes we have different opinions and somehow we have to find a middle way. And we defined again some questions. What does AI trustworthiness mean to you? Use cases, example of use cases. And maybe the most interesting one, the challenges that they identify our colleagues. And then at the end, pros and cons. Again, we worked with Miro to ask our colleagues. In general, so what do AI trustworthiness mean? The answers were similar, I must say. So most of them, they thought about explainability, understanding the algorithms, avoiding unbiased decisions. AI systems should be secure, should be monitored and validated, which I find a very important thing in trustworthiness. and how can I ensure that the usage of AI is safe. Then use cases. They were, although I was maybe expecting too much from my side that it will come more specific ideas of use cases, they were also, the answers was also general, and also when you think of in AI systems that put someone that are risky, and so then trustworthy should be considered. This is the most of like medicine, autonomous driving again, and any system forecasting, any system that should be then in the productive should be trustworthy so that the users, the end users trust it afterwards and apply it. Because this is one of the, also another problem in the industry, some of the AI applications stay at the level of research and they don't reach the production. They are not integrated in the system that the people at the industry have. Challenges among our colleagues identified is like, I like this one, like garbage in, garbage out. This says a lot about the data, and this is true. So it's really hard to do something with it if you don't have the basis. Then we have a quality assessment, and again, deep learning, which came several times here, and they said that we find it a bit hard to explain, and then to find this balance between explanation and accuracy. From the pros and the cons, so you can, if you see it like from the number, and so you would not say, okay, then why should we apply it? Because there are also a lot of cons to the pros, but there are domains where we cannot do it without it, I think. And this is also not only my opinion, but in some domains, if you want to apply it, you have to verify it, to test it, to certify it, because it's medicine. It's, I don't know if you will leave someone to conduct your life, but and you are not sure about it. But from the cons, I also like some of them which say if we focus too much on defining and maybe on the ethics, and so then we cannot keep the speed with the technology. And this is also something that the EU AI Act gets as a comment. But from the pros, it's also clear that to be able to apply it in more domains, then we have to address some of these challenges that were spoken by Christina. This is a short list of references. There are many more of them. And yeah, thank you. I am sure that we weren't able to answer all the questions or so, and also we didn't give a solution, but it's our ideas and how we should start with it, and maybe just keep in mind that it's good to have a diverse team and have, as we saw also in SafeSign, it's better to have different opinions so that we have a broader view and be open-minded, I think. Thank you.